Hello, dear student and viewers. You are heartily welcome to our official e-learning platform. This e-learning platform provides lectures of various subjects which covers hundreds of specific subject topics. As a part of it, today we are going to learn very much important subject, and that is fundamental of machine design. Actually, this subject comes in fourth semester degree mechanical engineering, and those students who have the massive interest in machine design or want to pursue higher qualification in machine component design, or somewhat want to build a career as a design engineer, this subject is the pioneer one for them. Well, in order to learn designing concept, one has the fundamental knowledge about machine component design. So to start with the fundamental concept, today we will discuss one of the very much important chapter, and that is basic of stress and strain. Look at this slide number 1. There is a normal stress you have given. Dear student, the term stress we have listened numbers of times in our regular life. Generally, after performing numbers of activities or hard work at the end of the day, many people are saying that I stress so much. So here in stress means getting tired of, or if I want to say our body can't respond or resist more to that external load of the that you are performing. Exactly in the same way, the definition of stress comes in our engineering subject too, or engineering discipline too. Suppose there is a load acting on a body directly, and body will not fracture or rupture due to this external load, but it will offer some resistance before fracturing. That we have experience, everyone have. If still we are increasing magnitude of this external load, the time will come when the body stop to offer resistance to that external applied load. So that clear message that it can't sustain much more, and so object will broken or fracture. So in conclusive way, we can say that any object will offer some internal resistance force before fracture. If we measure this internal force per unit area of that body, it is known as stress. So mathematical equation will become force per unit area. One more thing that I want to add is that you will also find somewhere or some book or some literature that the equation for stress is also external applied load upon area in place of internal resistance force upon area, because what definition says, the definition says that the stress is internal resistance force per unit area, but if you are finding that external force upon area, then this is true. Both of the equation is true, because up to elastic limit of any body, the internal resistance force is always equal to external force. So both of the equation is true, but take care of that this should be this equality is good hold for only and only up to elastic limit. And finally, from the equation one may easily get the unit of stress, and that equal to Newton per meter square or kilonewton per meter square. Now if load is applied on the body has tensile nature, suppose, then body will resist to elongate. That means it will resist to lengthwise, and it will stop to increase in length due to tensile force. So whatever the stress produced by applying tensile force on that body will be tensile stress. Suppose you are applying now compressive force, the stress will be compressive. So generally both the stresses, tensile and compressive stresses, are termed as normal or direct stresses. Tensile or compressive load, generally normal load, because we know that by carefully watching this figure, both of the stresses, either the tensile or compressive, will act through axis of body, or more in other word, we can say that the tensile or the compressive force have perpendicular relation with the failure area of that object. So that's why this is known as normal load. Now look at the slide number 2. There is one more type of stress, and that is shear stress. See, term shear or shearing off, or some way tearing off, is well known to all of us. Generally all cutting operations are performed due to shearing action. Then it is very necessary to learn what is shear. Well, when external force applied on the body is parallel to the body area, then it is known as shear force. See, in previous case what we have discussed, external force, either tensile or compressive, are perpendicular to body area, and that's why we can say that it is a normal load and stress produced are normal stresses. But if you are finding any example where the failure area is very much parallel to that applied external force or load, then this force will be definitely shear force. So be sure about the identification of shear force. So for example, when we are cutting paper by scissor, then it's common example that I want to say you. The jaw of the scissor are applying force, and if you observe it, the force applied by jaw is parallel to cutting plane or the cutting area of paper. So this is the common, very simple and sober example of shear force. Now look at the diagram. First, there is a simple knuckle joint you have given, figure number A, and there are two tensile force acting on that knuckle joint. Left hand side at point A there is a single eye end, right hand side at point C there is a fork eye end, and both of the ends or both of the eyes are joined with a common, inserting with a common knuckle point. So this is basically actually what is an assembly. Now if we are increasing forces on both the ends, I think what happens, we are here applying tensile force on both of the single and fork end, and just you require to observe the phenomena happens. From the figure number B, it is clearly understand that at the single eye or eye at point A, it will compress knuckle pin at middle portion and try to break from the right to left. Whereas if you are looking towards the double eye or at point C, the fork compress the same pin on top and bottom portion and trying to break that pin from left to right. So now due to increasing the tensile load, the knuckle pin will fail, and look at the figure number C. The middle portion of the pin is cut away due to this two types of forces acting on two sides. Now observe the figure carefully. Whatever we have applied force through point A and point C is parallel to fractural area of pin, and without any doubt we can say that this is the shearing force, and whatever the stress will produce, definitely shear stress. Now the equation for any kind of stress will always remain same, and that is force upon area, but there is a little bit difference. If you are calculating shear force, then your force shear stress, then your force should be shear force and area should be shearing area, and like that if you are calculating tensile stress, then your force should be tensile force and area should be tensile stress. Then after this slide showed some more example of shear stress happens in some parts of or some machine or some component. See, in previous slide we have discussed that the concept of shear stress and its failure. If shear failure take place in one common area, whatever the shear stress, we term it as a single shear. And for clearly understand, look at the top figure left hand side, there is a single shear joint. If you are increasing force F on both of the plates, then the bolt or we can say that stud will failure at a single place. So we can say that it is a single failure, single shear failure. Look at the figure nearby it given, that is a double shear joint. If you are increasing force on plates, now in place of single failuring area, bolt or stud will fail in two common area, and that's why we term it as a double shear failure. Likewise, some more example of shearing happens in our machinery or machine component are, you can also observe that phenomena in punch and press work, bar cutting by hexo blade or hexo machines, perforating machines, and much more. Then fourth types of the stress is the bearing stress. Dear student, we have already seen in case of normal stress that the force either the tensile or compressive is acting through an axis only. That means it has the point contact. In other words, the common contact between the force and area of body has point contact in case of compressive or tensile stress. But we have seen in numbers of other cases where this point contact is not there. There are area contact. That means whatever the force is externally applied has the area contact with failure body. And the best example that you should to know, and that is the shaft and bearing or journal in and bearing. See, shaft and journal have the common contact area is not of point contact, having the area contact. So, by carefully observing all that figure you have given in display, one thing that should be discussed is that all forces acting on the all figure acting on that particular objects or body have the compressive in nature. So, in general we can say that bearing stress is only produced when compressive force is acting in a common contact area. So, in conclusive way we can say that if bearing stress are acting anywhere, there should be two prime conditions. One, there should be a area contact between force and body, and secondly the load have the nature of compressive force only. And if you are feeling if any component or the machinery fulfill that two conditions, then we can say that it is bearing stress. Now dear friends, look at the display PPT number 7, and now we are coming another very much important term, and that is strain. In general we can say that the strain is generally defined as a deformation per unit length, per unit you can also say width, you can also take height or even area. So, generally strain should be defined as a deformation per unit length. Suppose in previous numbers of examples we have seen that if you are increasing tensile force P on particular bar, body going to be lengthened. So, there is some kind of deformation. If you are measuring the deformation for and you have original length, by taking the ratio of deformation to that original length, whatever you are getting, that is strain. And one more thing about strain is that strain is the dimensionless property, because we know that the deformation has same unit as that of the original length or width or height. So, there is no dimension to strain. And it's time to discuss about the types of strain. Look at the figure. There is one more types of strain that you are finding, that is the tensile strain. Now as shown in the figure, look at the top figure. There is a one circular bar, and original length of that bar is capital L. Suppose you are applying tensile force to both of the ends of that bar. What happens? Look at the below figure. Due to external applied tensile force, the bar will increase its length by delta. So, suppose you are measuring the delta, you are measuring the deformation delta and divide it with original length L, you will have strain. But here in the tensile term is used because we are applying tensile force. Simultaneously, if you are using the compressive load or force on that body or bar, whatever the strain will be generated will be compressive strain. One more thing that we should to discuss herein is that in case of tensile strain, length will always increase, but it may possible that height and width will be decreased. But in case of compressive strain, the length will be decreased and height and width will be increased. So, there is a little bit difference here. And now the third and most important types of strain, that is volumetric strain. Look at the figure. You have given one cube having the three-dimensional figure, has the three mutually perpendicular axes x, y and z, and suppose you are applying any forces on that particular any planes or any axis, whatever the forces may be, either compressive, tensile or etc. there is a deformation, and deformation of volume, not any length, width or height. So ultimately, if you are measuring the deformation of volume and divide it with original volume, then you will have volumetric strain. Mathematically, volumetric strain is defined as the change in volume upon original volume. Then one more important strain we are coming across, and that is the shear strain. Look at the figure. There is one plane that you have given, but in previous case what we have discussed, we have taken an example of a 3D cube having 6 plane, and which we have applied tensile or compressive force. Have you think that on the same cube, if you are applying shearing force? Well, to clear understand, look at this figure. I have taken one plane from previous cube, and as shown in the figure, at the top and bottom surfaces of that plane, the pair of shear forces are acting in opposite direction. Initially it was perfect square, but look at the figure. After applying pair of shear forces, it will twisted a little bit with an angle lambda or even alpha. Now look at the right hand side. There is a triangle in which straight vertical side is the original length, and inclined line is the length after deformation. So that means the triangle shows the scalar diagram actually, and vertical length, that means there is a original length, and after shearing forces, whatever the length is increased is represented by diagonal. Suppose you are joining both of the original and after case you are joining the two lines, inclined and straight vertical, you will find the deformation. So third joining or closing line will highlight the deformation. Suppose you are applying shearing force and the length is 12 mm, then original length will definitely make the 10 mm. So ultimately deformation is 12 minus 10, that is 2 mm. And once again if you require to have the shear strain value, then you should have the deformation upon original length, and from the triangle scalar diagram, if you are taking the ratio of deformation upon original length, you are getting tangent angle. So this is what the shear strain that we have discussed. Then it's time to discuss about the stress and strain relationship. And this relationship is earlierly best explained and invented by English scientist Robert Hooke in very much earlier years, 1660. He said that within elastic limit of any body, the ratio of stress produced is always proportional to strain. In other words, we can say that the stress is directly proportional to strain within elastic limit. Condition is that there should be a elastic limit, and up to elastic limit stress is directly proportional to strain. Well, the limit up to which if force is removed on the body will regain original shape and size. That is an elastic limit. And if there is a mathematical equation is there, then it will be stress is equal to capital E into eta, that means strain, where capital E is equal to elastic constant. Then this equation is reduced by putting the different values of stress and strain. Look at the figure, look at the equation. Stress is replaced by P by A, whereas strain is replaced by delta upon L. And finally it is this relations is converted in terms of deformation, delta. So you will have the P into L upon E into A, that is deformation. And last figure that is very much important to learn, and you student have numbers of time you will come across the same figure in next subsequent semester too, and that the figure is nothing other than stress strain relation curve. From the figure you can see that there is a proportionality limit, there is a yield point, there is ultimate strength or ultimate point, and final one is a fracture point. In horizontal direction, in x axis there is a strain and vertical is represented by stress. As we have already discussed, in case of proportionality limit, look at the straight inclined line that indicates the proportional limit, and if you are applying forces, whatever the stress produced in body is always proportional to strain, but up to proportionality limit. After proportionality limit, suppose you are increasing more force, then the point comes, that is yield point. Yield point generally indicates the plastic stage. That means if you are increasing forces beyond the proportionality limit, material will not regain its original shape and size. So this is a point generally termed as a yield point. After proportionality limit up to yield point, if you are applying forces to any body, a body will not regain its volume, its any dimensions, because the rate of strain that is produced in that body is much more faster than stress. In other words, there is no any kind of proportionality. If no proportionality, then not the questions to reform or regain of original shape. Okay. So after that yield point, there is one more point, and that is ultimate point. From the diagram, it is clear that it is highest stress point of any material. It is clearly you can see that any body have the highest stress at ultimate point. If we are increasing force after that yield point, the rate of strain once again the strain produced is much more faster than that of the stress. So this is the case of ultimate stress. See, name gives the mean ultimate. After that point, you are not supposed to apply more force on body. That is ultimate. That means warning points. And then the last point comes, that is fracture point. Even if you are applying more force after ultimate points, there is a one chance happens, and that is totally fracture. So be careful while designing that your design should be not up to ultimate strength, because ultimate strength, if you are designing any machine component by looking over ultimate strength or ultimate point, that is not perfect design, because at ultimate point there is no proportional relation between stress and strain. Your object should be like that. Whenever external force applied on that component, or you have whatever design your object, will regain its original shape and size. So your you should to take care of proportionality limit, or some extent to up to yield point. Your component should be designed, not ultimate or fracture point. So dear student, in this video lectures we have broadly covered the concept of stress and strain, its type, the relation between stress and strain. I hope this video lecture will boost up your fundamental knowledge and will solve many queries. Thank you very much for your willingness and kind of interest. Thank you very much.